Calling all stoners, Hearthstoners that is. Let's go, it's time to go into the maze! Hey guys, and I'm really excited about this episode. In this episode, we're going to talk about questions. We're going to talk about questions because I think everybody knows now with the power of the almighty Google that there is no answer that is not out there. You simply need to know what questions to ask. You need to know what to type into the search box. So in the next 3 games, we're going to have a little bit of a chat about some of the things that we need, that I've decided that I need to learn if I want to get better at this game, because we've been playing for a little bit now. We haven't been playing for a long time, but we've been playing for about 4 weeks, and we've had a whole lot of fun playing, and we're certainly learning how to play the Hunter. And of course, over the last few games, we've been having a few wins and having a few losses, making some mistakes, and then having a bit of a look at why the mistakes we made are actually mistakes, and what some of the good things look like. You know, we've had a look at some other gameplay from players that are much better than me, and had a look at some of the things they do. I'm pretty confident that I could say that I know the Hunter's mid-range deck pretty well now, and I have noticed some patterns, and that led me to ask a few questions. You know, so basically I decided that this episode would focus on some of those questions that I've been asking. I've been spending a fair bit of time over the last couple of weeks learning the intricacies of putting my gameplay into an episode for you guys to watch. So I've been learning how to use YouTube and how to upload and how to put all this stuff together so that hopefully it's a little bit entertaining for you guys. You can watch the gameplay, and I've been really focusing on that. And so with the season 23 approaching its end, and me panicking and realizing I'm not going to get my golden epic, I realized it's time to maybe focus on getting into improving my ability to play Hearthstone. So I had a look and decided, you know, it's time to ask a few questions. And the first question I asked was about decks. So why am I playing a Hunter? And, you know, the simple answer is that I chose the MidRange Hunter because it was a pretty cheap deck to put together, and I had nearly all of it already. So I guess if you're new to Hearthstone and you've got a few cards, then probably the easiest way to decide what you want to play is when you're going through and you're unlocking all those free decks. First and foremost is, what do you have fun playing? So decide what you enjoy playing the most. And second, of course, you need to have a look at what cards you've got, and to be able to play and win at least some of the time, you need to have a deck that's well constructed. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's expensive. It just needs to have some semblance of order. So if you think as a new Hearthstone player that you could just sit down and just choose the cards that look pretty or have cool names, yeah, you can definitely do that. But the chances are you probably aren't going to win many games, because the decks that are put together that are pre-constructed, what am I trying to say? If you have a look, if you Google a Hunter deck, then somebody who knows the game really, really well, certainly far more than I do, has put a bit of thought into putting the cards together with consideration to a lot of different factors that I haven't got my head around completely yet. I'm not saying I'm a fool, just that I'm still learning the game. And if you're new to the game, then you're in exactly the same boat as me. There's nothing to be ashamed of there. As we learn the game, we need to rely on people that know the game better than we do, so that we can improve our skills. Hey. So let those... Just looking at Unleash the Hounds, they're really doing some damage. So that's how I came to choose the Hunter. I also looked at the different decks, as you may recall, and I think a lot of people are fairly open in saying that the Hunter deck is probably one of the easier decks to play with when you first start playing Hearthstone. So I chose the Hunter deck, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. So... and of course, you know, a second deck is really important because, for reasons that we'll discuss, it's important not to put all of your eggs in one basket. And so my second deck is Druid. And so as I get decks, I work on building up my Druid deck. And what does that mean? Well, I know what my Druid deck's going to look like. I've looked up mid-range Druid. I've decided that's how I want to play the Druid deck. So I've got a printout of the deck, the cards that I need, and I've written down what decks those cards are in. The cards that I need are all in the classic. So every time I get 100 gold, I'm straight to the shop and I buy myself a classic deck. So I'm not looking at goblins versus gnomes or the grand tournaments. It's straight to classics and classics alone because I don't care about the other cards. I just want to get my Druid deck complete. And as far as disenchanting cards goes, I'm pretty reluctant to do it just yet, and that is because there are so many cards that I can get out of decks, and there are so many cards that I may need later on down the track. Of course, there's some no-brainers that you can disenchant, but that's for later. So unless I've got maybe just 1 or 2 cards that I need to get to complete a deck, I just leave it at that for now. So I'm sure there's a couple of people screaming saying, don't be stupid, there's so many cards you can disenchant. That's true. But for people like me who have only been playing for a short while, I would certainly not recommend to get all crazy about disenchanting everything that doesn't belong to the deck that you think you really want right now, because that might change in the near future. So the second question that I came to ask was mulligan. So I realised that every time I played, I was always looking to hold the same cards, and I got a comment from one of my subscribers just saying that, you know, like, you need to have a reason to keep certain cards, and it's just such common sense. But naturally, when you first start the game, you don't have that deck knowledge. So when I'm playing a mage, I know the basic cards they're going to use, but I just don't know well enough the types of cards that I should be looking to keep specifically to deal with a mage. I know that there's a strategy there, but I haven't learned it yet. So that was the second question that I thought about asking, and that, or, you know, in researching, information and research, call it what you will. So when we mulligan, what cards are we keeping? But more importantly, and my initial strategy is I'm looking for a curve, a mana curve. So I'm looking for a 1, 2, 3. So I'm looking for a web spinner nearly every time. I don't want to keep a trap, and I'd prefer to have a minion, so a Haunted Creeper or the King's Zealot. And for my third card, I'd be looking for the bow, or I'd be looking for I prefer the bow. that's my preference. But of course, you know, there are a lot of other options, of course, with Knife Juggler, and there's lots of other cards. So, Piloted Shredder, if I'm starting second, would be ideally the 4th card. So that's how I play, and that's just luck. If I get those cards in the mulligan or not, is just that's RNG. So if I get the cards I want, then great. But see, I'm in Mad Scientist. I mean, obviously that's it. That's perfect. I mean, this mulligan one. So Mad Scientist, Haunted Creeper. This is a good start for me. So I get a great advantage because I've got some cards to play. But I'd be doing the same thing for every game, and I'd realise this isn't really the right way to play, because there's certainly going to be cards that are going to be more or less beneficial against certain opposition decks. But I don't have that. I don't have the knowledge, that deck knowledge, to know when I should make those decisions. So a lot of the time, if I would mulligan a card, or if rather I'd keep a card against a particular deck, and I'd find it useful, I'd remember that for the future and say, hey, that was really useful when I kept Quick Shot against the Priest and we played that crazy card. And anyway, you get the idea. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when you're first starting, just look for that mana curve, but as you take your game to the next level, realize that there are going to be better strategies against certain decks. So that's something that we need to look at. That's something we need to research to make me a better player. So as I said before, guys, this episode is about the questions. And the answers are easy to come by. There are a lot of people out there that really know what they're doing. And of course, there's a lot of sites that we can check out. There's Google is our best friend. So there's certainly no no difficulty in getting the answers to our questions. I think the hardest thing is to know what to ask. So that's what this episode's all about. So, of course, when we talk about mulligans for different decks, I think the other thing as well is to think about how we play against different decks. So I realized I play the same way every single time. So how is that any different than anyone else? If I'm just playing a mana curve, you know, like, gee, I mean, you could, I don't know, make a bot to do that. You know, like, it's not really that hard. You know, round 1 play 1 card, round 2 play 2 card. But obviously, you know, there's a lot of, it's a little bit more complicated than if this, then that, because there are just so many different choices and options you can make. But of course, what's missing from my beginner strategy is that I don't know what cards they have, and I don't always know what I need to be aware of. So as I've played more, I've come to understand things like, you know, be aware when playing the priest because of, you know, Valen's chosen. So if I leave some small, I mean, you know, like a priest has got all these buff options. So I need to be really mindful of that. When I leave some pissy minion on the board because I think, oh, well, I don't care about that, I'm going to go face, be aware that next turn, that 1 attack suddenly becomes a 4 attack, or, you know, that, you know, he uses some other buff card and all of a sudden this small minion who I thought I could ignore becomes a problem. So for, you know, my strategy for playing against a priest is certainly something that I have to consider when I'm, you know, clearing, maybe to focus more on board control. And so, you know, these are some of the things that, you know, that you need to consider. That your strategy is not always going to be the same. You know, like with a warrior, and I'm not trying to tell you guys how to play it. I mean, these are questions. We're asking questions. But I guess what I'm trying to impart is that some of, I have started to learn some of these things just from playing, but not actually looking up anything useful. And, you know, so control. So a warrior is another example. Use a brawl. I don't know how many times I get crazy and I think, you know, I'm doing so well, and I go hard and I start putting some minions on the table, and then all of a sudden brawl comes out and I lose 4 or 5 minions, all because I forgot that the warrior had brawl, or I didn't know. So now every time I get a warrior, I think to myself, okay, if we start getting some board control, let's just ease up on the minions, you know, because out comes that brawl card, and that is just such good value for them. So I'm always a little bit wary, and I think that's the edge that you get when you get a little bit more experience. But of course, there's you know, cheat guides that you can get, or not cheat guides, but what do they call them, like cheat sheets, reference guides that you can get, that you can make for yourself, or that you can get online, that allow you like a quick refresher card that tells you what you need to watch out for. So there's some other things that we can look at as well. And there's another win. So yeah, we continue our win streak, guys, and we're 17 and 3 stars. So we're doing pretty well here. But another question, of course, is understanding the meta. So, so what's the meta? I say meta because that's how I'd say it in Australia. Let's get rid of these freezing traps first. And so what I've come to understand is that it's, I guess the popular way that everyone's playing. So the trend, if you like, maybe, I'm not sure. But the way I've seen it apply to my game is that, as you guys know, I've only been playing the MidRange Hunter. And I seem to fly through and win fairly comfortably up until about 15. And then I really hit the wall. I struggle. And so I guess the question is, why is that? And one of the first things that I did when I started playing was I got the TrackerBot add-on, and of course, as you guys know, I also use the other add-on, which is Hearthstone Deck Tracker. And what this allows me to do is it gives me the option to track my wins and losses. And I can actually break it down and see, as I'm sure some of you guys already know, that you can see where your wins and losses are coming from, against who. And this is really, really relevant because I think I said it in episode 3. I thought that I thought I was kicking ass against warlocks, and that I was really struggling against priests. I thought I was doing pretty well against paladins. But when I brought up the stats, fortunately for me, is that I had a positive win record against everyone except paladins. And paladins kick my ass really badly. And so that's what's happening, is that when I get to rank 15, that's when I start coming up against paladins. Like every third match is a paladin. So I can't get a win streak going because I'm really struggling against paladins. And so I thought, okay, well, wow, okay, I'm actually doing quite well against everybody, but just paladins is a real problem. And so, of course, I had a look at this and thought, well, what can I do? This is a problem, you know, because I'm playing so many paladins. And I actually looked at my stats again just to make sure that it wasn't just, you know, me remembering my losses and it not being an accurate recollection. And sure enough, the statistics say that I'm playing more paladins, significantly more paladins than any other class. So if you put one and one together, we're fucked. So we're playing paladins more than anyone else, and we're losing against paladins. It's the only deck that we're losing more than we're winning. So this is a real problem for us. So we either change the deck so that it's more competitive against paladins, but at what cost? Or we need to look at doing something completely different, like playing something that really does well against paladins. But it seems, and we come back to this question about the meta, is that if the meta is paladin heavy, if everyone's playing paladins because they're OP, or they love decks that start with the letter P, why play the very deck that struggles against paladins? Yet here we are. But it's a question I didn't know to ask before. And, you know, how long does this trend continue for? Well, it's not infinite. We know that every season the meta changes, and that everyone's constantly trying to stay ahead of the meta, so that what we're doing now is being beaten by other people who are trying to... I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I think you guys get it anyway. So, So I guess what I'm trying to say is that that when you play, you know, a few games in the season, you get to know the pattern, and you need to really try not to be inflexible. And I've identified that as another problem this season, and that is that I've been determined to stick with the Hunter's deck unchanged because I've been really motivated to learn the deck. And I've put all of my losses down to inexperience, and certainly some of it has been because I've made mistakes. And the only way I think I'm going to get better is by playing the deck, and that is largely true too. And I'd certainly recommend you guys do the same thing. By the same token, I think we also need to understand the limitations of the deck. And I did jump on and started reading a few articles, and there was a forum that was full of people that were playing MidRange Hunter and expressing the same problems that they were having playing against paladins. So it wasn't just me, it is actually the deck struggling against paladin. And of course there are some suggestions about, you know, fine-tuning a couple of cards to try and make it perform better. But, you know, there was one guy who said, hey, you know, if I see a paladin, I just concede straight away because I just know that I'm wasting my time. And so, you know, when I read that, I thought to myself, yeah, okay, this is obviously, this is not a situation that's specific to me alone. This is something that other people are experiencing. So, so that's, you know, it's a pretty tough question to ask. So, yeah, right now I'm looking face. So we've got kill command here, or we can go steady shot. And I've obviously got the mad scientist too, so we're going to put the mad scientist in play. So yeah, this is looking like one of those rare occasions where we might actually get a winner over a paladin, despite everything I just said. But yeah, guys, I hope that I hope that some of these questions that I've asked, maybe particularly if you're starting new like I am, that or if you've had a break and you're coming back, these are some of the questions that you can ask about the deck you're playing or about the game, your gameplay. And if we can just rehash that, first the deck you're playing, why you're playing it, and of course looking at a secondary deck. So in my situation, as I've said, I'm playing the Hunter right now, but I'm starting to realise that with the meta the way it is, as we discussed, it's probably not a good idea for me to just play the Hunter all the way through. When I hit about rank 15 or 14, I start to hit a lot of Paladins. And so as a result, I need to be able to change to something else when I start hitting the Paladins, or I'm just going to stagnate. I'm going to get stuck there because I have that disadvantage. So we use our kill command, we get him down to 1, and now we're lethal next round unless he can pull something out of the hat. Oh, anti-heal bot will do the job. And he's dropped a Belcher. So he's put the defense up, he's managed to heal himself. So this will be interesting. The Paladin just hangs on. We've got a King Zalek that we can play as well here. Can we get lethal here? Savannah Highmane, that's beautiful. That is a great draw for us. Absolutely perfect. RNG works in our favour, guys. We've got Savannah Highmane, so we can be a little aggressive in clearing that Belcher now, knowing that we've got the extra damage from Savannah Highmane. But yeah, going back to our questions, of course. As we said earlier, you've got to ask yourself about your mulligan strategy and how it might differ depending on what deck you're playing against. So if a Paladin pops up, what can you do differently than what you normally do to give yourself that edge? And as I hit the end turn, all he's doing is he's really working hard. He's cleared 3 of the minions, but we've still got Savannah Highmane, so we are still lethal. And so it'll be interesting to see what he can do. So we've got the hyenas, and of course it really depends on what card we flip. But we've still got quite a lead. Yes, that's beautiful. Again, we've been really lucky with our draws, and that has given us lethal. It's the Eaglehorn Bow and Steady Shot, and we've got a very rare victory over a Paladin. Second last point, of course, was, yes, how do you play different against different decks? So yeah, make sure that there's a difference in your approach. And of course, lastly, is to understand the meta. So that's our win streak continued. We have moved up to rank 16, and we hope we can continue. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to see this win streak continue and enjoy the ride, please subscribe. And thanks for watching. Remember those points. I hope it helps your game, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. This is Tal out.